Hello, I'm Jenny. Welcome to Art Online with Chrysalis. Here are the supplies you will need. If you don't have a 3B pencil, that's okay, just use your HB pencil. The 6B pencil is for shading as well, but again, if you don't have one, that's fine, and just your HB pencil will do. In this series, we are looking at portraits of celebrities, and today I'm going to be drawing Marilyn Monroe. So when we are drawing portraits of a face, it's really important to have some guidelines to help us along. In this portrait of Marilyn Monroe, I've drawn a vertical line from the top of her forehead down to her chin, and then 3 horizontal lines, one for her eyes, where her eyes would be placed, one for her nose, and one for where her mouth would be. When you're drawing a portrait of a face, it really helps to have some guidelines. I've drawn a center line and a horizontal line for the center of her face and her eyes. I've also drawn a place for her nose and her mouth. I made it about 17 centimeters vertically from the top of her head to her chin and 13 centimeters across where her eyes would be. If you don't have a ruler, that's okay. You can also use your hand. I used my thumb and my middle finger to measure from the top of her head down to her chin. And I also used my thumb and my pointer finger to measure across the width of her face as well, where her eyes would be. I also measured about 8 centimeters from the top of her head to where her eyes would be. And then I'll just use my finger to line it up as well to measure from the top of her head to where her eyes would be, and then about 3 centimeters from her eyes to her nose, bottom of her nose, and then another couple of centimeters, 2 centimeters from her nose to her middle of her mouth, and then a little bit further, about 4 centimeters from the middle of her mouth to her chin. Here I've also drawn 2 shapes in space to help anchor her face. 2 circles, a bigger one for the top part of her head to her nose, and a smaller one in the mouth area and jawline. So once you have your guidelines in and your anchor shapes, it starts to become a lot easier now to see where the side of her head and her jawline can be placed and put in. Her jawline angles just right where her mouth is. On an angle or diagonal there. And this is a time where you can just play around and start to fill in bits and pieces, and I had to square up her head a little bit over here because it was quite round. And so now I'm just fiddling around and just trying to get that face looking the right shape. So just keep referring back to the picture of Marilyn Monroe to help you along. Again, I like to print out a picture of Marilyn, of always the pieces that I'm doing. I like to have a printout so I can refer to it easily. You can move along with me. So in this particular black and white picture of Marilyn Monroe, there's a lot of dark and light shading. So that's a lot of fun too, to play with the light and do colour contrast or dark and light contrasts to add tone here. If you want to add shine to her lips, you just leave that part white and you shade around the part that you want to remain shiny. Or you can come in with an eraser as well and also highlight that way. So the last part of our portrait drawing is doing the hair. Here I've just made some outlines of the kind of shapes that we're looking at when we are doing Marilyn Monroe's hair. Here I'm just doing the ear, and then I'm going to start on her hair. One interesting fact about Marilyn Monroe is that her original name was Norma Jean Baker. Monroe was actually her mother's maiden name. Another fact about Marilyn Monroe was that she was in and out of foster homes, and her first marriage was arranged at the age of 16. This allowed her to stay out of an orphanage. So Marilyn Monroe had a pretty tough life. So the last part of this video is just really shading, creating light and dark contrasts. And I use the side of my pencil to do this. And I may use an eraser to create highlights in the hair as well. And I might use my finger also just to rub and create even more shading. That way, when I use my finger, it just blends it a little bit more nicely. Here is what we learned today. I used guidelines, anchoring shapes, outlining and contouring, and I did shading at the end as well. So I hope you had fun and you'll come back and see us again soon. Bye for now.